Do today is a bouncing cat. We are trying to build a code which is going to make this cat bounce across the screen, right? As you have seen in the video. But what is important to note here is not the code, is how we approach that code. It is not about the sequence of steps that we have to notice. It's about how we build those steps which finally result in a particular algorithm is something we need to note. Now, depending on what steps we take first, everybody may get a different algorithm to achieve the same thing, and that is fine. And that is why it is important to follow the process rather than the sequence of steps while coding. So, if you must have seen a video, what generally happens? So, the cat generally continues to move in a particular direction, right? And once it hits the border, it sort of bounces and turns in the other direction, correct? Like this. So, what is our first problem? Our first problem is to identify how do we make it move. It's currently stationary, right? So even if I go and press the flag, nothing happens. It doesn't move. So how do we make the cat move in a particular direction? Right? Let us try and solve that problem by try to see if there is something here that can help us. Right? I see a block called as move 10 steps, and maybe, just maybe, like if I click on that, then yes, the cat moves, right? But it takes only one single step. That's not a movement, right? When do we say something is moving is when it is like continuously going ahead. It is taking the steps again and again, right? That is what it needs to do. But we do not have, we just have a block which gives us a single step. We do not have a block that gives us an entire continuous moment, right? Uh, so how do we make that block, right? How do we define a continuous moment? So what do we expect a continuous moment to happen? So let us first define our continuous moment, right? So we create a block and we say continuous moment, right? So this is where we are now trying to define our continuous moment. What happens in a continuous moment? Right? The first thing that we generally tend to do in a continuous moment is we have to first take the basic step. So we take our basic step. But this, as you can see, if I click here, just takes one single step. Why is that happening? Because for our continuous moment, we have said it's just a single step. But that is not it. Continuous moment is not just a single step, right? So what should happen in a continuous moment? How do we define a continuous moment? Continuous moment is you take a step, but your movement is not complete just by taking one step. So you have to continue to take the movement steps, like, again and again. And how do we say that? So we are defining a continuous moment, right? We take a single step, but that is not over. So we continue to do the movement. And how do we continue to do the movement? We take the same block and apply it down. So now read this, right? It says we are trying to define what is a continuous moment. Now, what is a continuous moment? Is that we take a single step and then, because the single step is not an entire continuous moment, we continuously move ahead. Right? That's exactly how it is to be read. And if I click here, you see that it is actually moving. Right? You can actually stop this, get the cat back, right? And if I click on this, it actually moves. Right? This is exactly what we want. But there is a problem. The problem is we now have a moving cat, but this moving cat actually goes and hits the border and stays there. But our movement is still happening. It's just that cat is not moving ahead because it has just hit the wall. Right? It's trying to move ahead, but it cannot. So what is our next step? Right? Everything is fine as long as it has not hit the border. Correct? Everything is fine as long as we have not hit the border. The problem happens when it hits the border or when it hits the edge. So all of these steps are fine we just have to say that cat would have to bounce if it hits the edge. And do we have anything to solve that problem? Uh, so I can see that there is a block which says if on edge bounce, right? And what I need to do is I need to make it a part of the movement, correct? So maybe putting it here, does that solve our problem? Let's see. No, it has not, right? So we have to move it inside. And this should possibly solve our problem. Let me get the cat back in the center. And yeah, there you go. So we have a bouncing cat now, right? But there was another problem over here. And the problem was every time I stop it, it does not start from the center, correct? It may just start from anywhere, see, it does not start from the center. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to always use a block and say go to 0, 0 first and then run my continuous moment. Right? So this time, no matter what happens, it's always going to start from the center. Right? See, now, no matter what happens, it is always going to start from the center. So this is exactly what we want for a bouncing cat to happen. Right? So I may now change the direction to something. I may click this and it is now bouncing. This is good, right? This part is good. But now there is another problem. Is if I click the green button, it is not starting. I have to go and click here, but I want it to start because if I'm trying to use the full screen, then I have to use the green button. I cannot go to the block and click it. So what am I going to do? Is I'm going to go to sensors and now I see that there is an option over here which says, sorry, in events, and I see that there is an option here called as when flag clicked. So I use that option over here and now I can see that on clicking of the flag, the cat is bouncing. All right. So what is the main point here? The main point over here is we are talking about a process. We are not talking about the code. If somebody sees this code directly, he'll go like, okay, let us first put the green flag, right? Green flag click, then go to 0, 0. Then we have to create a block called as continuous movement. Then we have to put if on edge bounce. We have to put move on 10 steps. And then finally we have to call it again. So we go into all these uh, steps which we try to by heart. Instead, if you see, we didn't think about the steps. We approached with questions. We first asked, what is it that we need to get the very, very basic thing done? And then we found that there is this move block which can solve our problem. We can get it to move. But then the problem was it was just taking a single step and then it was stopping. So that is why we didn't see that there was anything, there was no block here which was giving us a continuous movement. So we had to create our own, we had to define our own. So we tried defining our own continuous movement where we first try to take a single step and then we continue to do this continuous movement by calling the same thing again. Correct? This is exactly how I would define it if I'm writing it on the paper. So this is called as the recursive definition. Okay. But then there was another problem. The problem was it goes and hits the wall and does nothing. That is when we introduced this if on edge bounce condition. We first tried to put it somewhere else that didn't work, so we moved it inside. And so there is an exploratory learning that is happening over here. What would have happened if this was put after move 10 steps and not before? That is also something possible to try, right? Maybe both would produce the exact same kind of a result. So is this code correct or that code correct? It's not like that. Right? So if you try to remember the sequence, we'll actually by heart that after define it has to be if on edge bounce. But in all practical reality, even this code would produce the same result. Correct? It produces exactly same output. So rather than remembering or memorizing the steps, it is important to memorize the process. practice the process, memorize or remember the questions that we had at every step. Once we got this basic thing working, we had another set of problem. And that set of problem was it was starting from any other location. It was never starting from the center. So we introduced go to. Then we realized another problem that this game or this animation is not starting unless we click the flag. It does not start by clicking on the flag button. So finally, we introduced the when flag clicked hat, and that's how we completed this code. It is very, very important to highlight the process, get the attention of students to these questions. It is about problem solving. At each step, we look at the problem, we solve it by putting code somewhere. One simple, one small code somewhere here or there to address that one problem. Then we see another problem, we solve that problem. And that is how we get the sequence of steps which computer executes. It's a problem to give an entire sequence of steps. Do not give the sequence of steps. Walk them through the process. That is what is more important. Thank you.